Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fine. In the previous video we have started a topic that is conditional statement in C. So previously we have discussed about two types of conditional statement, that is if and if else statement. Now in this video we will discuss about the rest of the conditional statement. Now let us see what are those. Now first one is nested if else statement. Now what is this nested if else statement? The nested if else statement is used when a program requires more than one test expression. It is also called a multi-way selection statement. Like previously, in if or if else statement, we have only two options, like either if or else. If the condition for if statement is true, then the statement will pass to if block, or else it will pass to the else block. Now what if we need a series of decision for any kind of statement? Then here comes the use of nested if else statement. Okay, now let us see the syntax for nested if else statement. As you can see here, like previous, here we have an if and for an else statement for the respective if. If the condition for if is false, the statement will pass on to the else block, and if the condition for if statement is true, then the statement will go inside the if block, and here inside the if block there is another if block and an else block. So for this this statement is known as nested if else statement, that is inside the if block there is another if else statement. So here if the condition for if is true, then the if block will execute and then the statement will pass on. If the condition for if is false, then the statement will pass on to the else block. I think everything is getting clumsy for you guys. You will get the better idea about the nested if else statement when you will see the program. Now let us see the program for the nested if else statement. Now we'll compile the program. First of all, enter the value of A. Okay, for suppose I give the value of A as 10 and B 15. Now B, the result is showing that B is greater than A, as the value of B is 15 and A is 10. Now what if I give the value of A greater than B, 15? Yes, it is showing that A is greater than B. Now what if I give the value, both value equal? It is showing that A and B are equal. Now what is happening here? Firstly, we have taken two variable A and B of integer type. Okay, and we have taken value for A and then value for B. Now here comes the if statement. If A is greater than equal to B. Now again inside this, if A equal to B, printf A and B are equal, else printf A is greater than B. After getting the value of A and B, it will check for the value of A greater or equal to B. This if block will execute. Now if the value of A and B are equal, then this if block will execute, or else this block will execute. And lastly, if the value of B is greater than A, then this whole if block will not execute and the statement will pass through this else statement, and we will get the result as B is greater than A. Okay, next here comes the if else if ladder. Now what is this if else if ladder? The if else if statement is used to execute one code from multiple condition. It is also called multipath decision statement. So basically this if else if ladder is nothing but the combination of if and else if statement. In the previous one, that is nested if else statement, we have seen that inside the if block there is another if and else block. So here in this ladder we will see that there is no if else block inside if block. Here the if block is directly associated with again another else if statement. Okay, now let us see the syntax for the if else if ladder. As you guys can see, first here there is if block, and for that if block there is some condition, and again after that if block here it is an else if, and again for this else if there is some condition, and it will go on like this, and lastly there will the ladder will finish with an else block. Okay, now in this diagram you guys can see simply here for a statement, if the condition is true, then it will pass through the if block and pass on to the next statement. If the condition for the if condition is false, then it will go on to the next if else block, and again if it is true, then it will execute for the if else block. Further, if it is false, then it will proceed to the next if else condition, and again if it is true, then it will pass on to the next block, and lastly it will go through an else block as the final step. Okay, now let us see the program for the if else ladder. Now for the previous example, if we remove the nested part for the if block and give it and write it as if A greater than B, printf A is greater than B, else if A less than B, printf B is greater than A. Lastly the else printf A and B are equal. Okay, now let us compile it. Okay, I have not given semicolon here. Okay, now let's compile it. Firstly, enter value of a 10, enter value of b. Okay, we are getting the result as a is greater than b. Okay, now if I give the value of b as greater, yes, we are getting the result as b is greater than a. Okay, now what if I give both the value as equal? Yes, it is showing that a and b are equal. So what is basically happening here? Firstly, for the first if block, if a is greater than b, we are getting that a is greater than b. If the condition of if is false, then it will pass on to the next if else, and it will check if a is less than b. If it is true, then it will print that b is greater than a. And again, if the condition for this else if is false, it will pass on to the else, and we are getting the result as a and b are equal. Okay,